live. We are dispatching on the 5th of August. Here we are, Nick. Now, if you had told me a year ago that the SEC chair was coming out and doing Project Crypto and with some of the most bullish announcement ever saying, America is not going to follow, we're going to lead. But that's not the biggest headline. The biggest headline is that markets aren't taking the fact that Trump is sending nuclear subs into Russian waters as the main headline away from that news. I would have said you were lying, but here we are.
Yeah, been a busy week. And yes, I would have sent you off to the funny farm if you tried to tell me that a year ago. But yeah, here we are. Some of the most bullish news we've seen ever come out of the administration in any administration really for crypto, and prices are down.
Just incredible scenes all around. Look, I don't even know where to start with all this because it's there's so much news coming out, but still Trump is dominating all the headlines, and so we have to kind of move Trump aside because he's part of the reality of the fact that crypto is got all these bullish announcements coming out, but he's also part of the reason it's getting buried in headlines of other craziness.
With one hand he giveth, the other he taketh away. But,
the Trump.
See how it ends up.
Well, as we will. So let's jump into the main stuff. So look, this week we thought we might try and focus on a few key headlines instead of spreading love too thin across some lesser announcements. Spend a little more time delving into the key issues. But definitely the SEC's Project Crypto is the number one issue, I guess. Number one headline that we need to discuss. Just absolutely incredible scenes. So the SEC has plans that involves modernizing crypto. So he's using terms like game changer and, we will lead on this, and this is going to, usher in the next wave of financial innovation, which is just incredible. So there's going to be laws around modernizing regulations for custody and supporting both DeFi, centralized platforms, the works. The obvious question, well, I think we can probably agree that this is a great thing for the industry broadly speaking, but I guess specifically we'd love to probably dig down in what this means for Australia as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, like most countries, I think who are following on closely, everyone hopes that something similar happens there. I think probably a lot of more retail players are more interested in things like how capital gains plays out. Unfortunately, this... what do we call it? Sorry, the Project Crypto announcement and the things that were talked about it don't have anything to do with capital gains, which is where I'm really keen on looking.
But you would need capital gains first to apply to you.
You first need to have a gain to be taxed on your gain. Yeah, that's true. I've got nothing to worry about. Yeah, so I guess from that perspective, everyone is watching on, and I think a lot of it happened in the corporate space first with. MicroStrategy, now Strategy, doing their Treasury play and all of the copycat companies coming along. The regulatory play is playing out in America. Trump, we've spoken about this many times in the past. Trump, sort of a large part of his reason for winning had to do with crypto and, all the crypto super PACs that came along and really sort of helped bankroll and create a path for him to win with this positive, with him promising all this positive stuff for crypto. Everyone remembers him saying he's going to fire Gary Gensler on day one. He had a bunch of promises, including I think he was going to end the Ukraine war in the first 22 days or something like that. And obviously that didn't happen. But a lot of the crypto stuff came true, which everyone was kind of surprised and extremely happy about. And here it is continuing on. So obviously he's even if it's behind the scenes, he's set this. Tone of voice, I suppose, for the rest of like the regulatory agencies, saying, look, this is how we're going to move forward. These guys have come out, the SEC have come out with Project Crypto, which is just so bullish for everything crypto. Doing crypto in the US is like, if this all comes true, if the legislation gets put through, it's going to be amazing. Everyone's going to love it. And it all seems like really sensible, reasonably thought out things, at least, at a high level. They haven't gone to the details yet. The legislation still needs to be written and agreed to and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, at a high level, just some high dot points. So token classifications, they're looking to make sure that tokens aren't all immediately by default assumed to be securities, which is what the previous SEC administration or like Gary Gensler that was his kind of shtick. He kind of loved calling everything a security and then suing them, and famously losing many of the court cases that he put up. So the idea here is that they're saying, look, we will clarify what is a security, what isn't. And sort of as a side note, they were like, and by the way, we believe most things aren't a security.
Yeah, okay.
So that's just it's so good.
That's good.
And it kind of is sensible because there are obviously some tokens out there that are clearly securities. They have tokenomics around them that make decisions and invest in certain ways and make decisions for the customer, and these things are securities. But there are a lot of other things there that shouldn't be securities. Most of the meme coins don't do anything. So how do you blame them to be securities? Otherwise, they're looking to create frameworks for ICOs, airdrops, stuff like that, which is cool because a lot of people love airdrop farming, doing all that kind of stuff. So making that legal and making there just some clarity around the regulation, how it all works, it will be great. What are we doing? Up to custody rules. Again, this is something that Independent Reserve has spoken about often. When we're talking to our regulatory bodies like ASIC, we need rules. Well, the industry needs rules around how custody needs to be done because it's so important.
It's so important. And right now, I think a lot of consumers would be absolutely horrified to know that you can leave your assets on an exchange and you can listen to the way perhaps that we custody those assets. But, one of our competitors, for example, could roll up and their security protocol is quite simply putting it all on a USB stick on their CEO's top drawer or something.
Or even worse, holding it on an exchange like FTX, like another exchange,
right?
Like FTX, which unfortunately happened a lot.
Yeah. And if there was some laws to say, well, at least if you're going to leave it on the exchange, that exchange is following minimum standards for security, which we can all pretty much agree is a good way to do things. That should be a great thing for consumers in general.
Yep.
Yes. For some reason, we still don't have it.
Yeah, and
which is just incredible to my mind, considering a lot of exchanges that have in excess of $1 billion worth of assets, customer assets, everyday users whose funds are not protected by some kind of minimum standard of behaviour.
Yeah, that's totally true. How, as a consumer, how do you make a decision between which exchange you're going to go to because that they're not necessarily following the rules?
Well, there are no rules to follow at the moment.
Well, that's right. I mean, even just common sense rules, right? They're like some exchanges can run fast and loose with this stuff. Obviously, Independent Reserve, we take this stuff extremely seriously, but you just don't know. And I can say, I see the inner workings. I'm fully comfortable holding my crypto on the exchange, but I totally understand why why customers might not, because they can't see the inner workings. It's not fair, and there's no rules governing how we do this.
Yep.
But anyway, that's in the US again. We haven't seen anything like that come through. Hopefully it does. In Australia, there are rumblings of legislation coming through in the next year or so. I think all the stuff that's happening in the US, especially as we're sort of powering through this bull market, it's capturing a lot of attention, and hopefully the politicians pay attention to what's happening.
Yep.
Anyway, other things, the SEC and CFTC are working together, which is great. They've always sort of been at odds, and one of them wants to control this crypto and the other one wants to control, and so they're coming together under this project crypto. And also, finally, the SEC will be using their exemptive powers to stop any stifling of innovation in the meantime until this project crypto comes to fruition, which is also good news because it's kind of the opposite message to what the previous SEC leader was doing.
Yeah. So, now that the dust has settled, do you know, or did you read about anything that kind of indicated why, under Biden, Elizabeth Warren with her anti-crypto army, which was humorous viewing, but why were they like, no, we can't have this thing? What was it? Did they see it as some kind of existential threat? Was the lobby, was there genuinely an anti-digital assets lobby that was going, no, let's just kill this thing? Did you, in the wrap up of everything, have you seen anything as to why they had this kind of view? I mean, there is a bunch of conspiracy theories around. It was interesting though, because Gary Gensler, the famous villain from the last season, was originally like a crypto professor or whatever, blockchain at MIT or something.
Yeah, he taught this in the universities, so it wasn't new to him. And I don't think he was against crypto, and he was always, I don't think he was against Bitcoin, because he was always sort of, no, Bitcoin is, immaculate conception and passes the Howey test or whatever. And so it was a commodity, not a security, but then everything else was going down. And I think he eventually relented with Ethereum, but man, it took a lot of pressure. I feel like it was sort of a lot of lobbying from the likes of Elizabeth Warren and her ilk that created this pressure on the SEC to do something. And eventually there was enough of the other side pressure to allow the ETFs to come on board, because that was sort of his parting gift just as he was leaving, was he approved these these crypto, the Bitcoin. Did you do that? He did the Ethereum one too, right? Was he around for that one? I think he was. Yeah. He definitely did the Bitcoin one, and everyone was a bit surprised at that, but it was sort of they took it down to a vote of the SEC commissioners, and it was like 3-2. Like they just got it over the line, and the third deciding vote was Gary Gensler, and he was like, okay, this is what we're doing. I guess he just had too much pressure to get this thing over the line.
That's incredible. It's funny because Trump, the other thing that did make headlines this week was that Trump fired one of the political appointees who released bad job numbers.
Yeah, the BLS, the Bureau of...
And did he fire him? 'Cause, I mean, this is kind of weird. Don't shoot the messenger and all that kind of stuff. But there must be more to this story. Like there must have been something going on.
Yeah, there is. So, well, it's a weird one, and I'm going to do a hot take at the end of this. So the Bureau of Labour Statistics, the commissioner, or like the head of this, was the person who released these jobs numbers, right? So the jobs numbers, the US jobs numbers came out pretty poor. Trump really hated that. He decided that they were fake numbers, and then he pointed at her, and her name's Erica or something, and he goes, "You're fired."
Fake numbers.
Yeah, literally fake numbers, and the rhetoric here is that she's been undermining him. She was an appointee of Biden or one of the other guys, right?
Oh, so he sort of like
the Democrats, right?
So saw her say as engineering things to kind of undermine.
That's right, and his claim is that there's all these other people in the administration that came from the Democrats and are always just needling him, trying to niggle him and in ways that undermine him. And so he's like, "That's it, I've had enough. You're fired." But everyone's like, "You can't do this. Like these people are bipartisan. Like they're partisan. They're not on one side or the other. Yes, they get appointed by an administration, but that's just how it is." Even the BLS commissioner that Trump appointed previously, a guy called William Beach, he was like, "You can't do this." Like even though he was, appointed by Trump, he's like, "This is nonsense." There's a bunch of associations that came out, like economic associations in the US, saying you can't do this. And it is nonsense, right? You can't just fire someone because you don't like the numbers. That's just crazy. Get some stats, give us some proof that the numbers were faked, then sure, get her out. But until we've proven that they're fake, that's just crazy. Yeah, and what else do I have to say on this one? Oh, yeah, so it seems crazy. Is this the definition of corruption? Like, I don't want to, but is it? Like, it seems.
Can you someone quickly Google a definition of corruption?
To me, anyway. Yeah. I just can't believe that's so. Trump's always done these things like that, and you're always like, oh gosh. But I don't know. Sometimes you can kind of in your own head, you can talk them through. But yeah, this one just seems like the numbers came out were bad, so you got fired. Who's going to give him real numbers, true numbers, if they're risking their jobs? It sets such a bad precedence. Anyway. Yeah. That's right. That's my little rant over. But it seems like a bad news story to me.
Bad news story
for democracy.
Okay, bad news. Bad luck for democracy. The next bit of news. Actually, we had to touch on this again. I love seeing this one get wheeled out. The fake reports of another Chinese ban. It's already been banned like 17 times.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite X accounts, like the permanent Bitcoin bears. And they'll latch on to any kind of bad news, like, ha ha ha, once again, you suck. It's all over.
Yeah, I told you so.
I told you so. And I'd love to see the issuance of like a repurposed salt. And the China ban was all over Twitter, all over X. I keep calling it Twitter. All over X. And everyone's like, yeah, see, look, China ban, it's all over again. Told you.
Yeah.
But why does this keep popping up?
Yeah, who knows? So I first saw it on the Polymarket account actually, which kind of surprised me. I'm like, are those guys doing news now? And not only news, but shitty news that everyone, like it was already banned back, 4 years ago or whatever.
4 years ago.
What's changed? First we need to see the news that it's unbanned before we can see the banning news. And they kind of skipped a step. So really it is no news. And then of course everyone, all these accounts close to China came out and go, this is, there's no news, that this doesn't exist. It's not true. I mean, it's not true. It is true. China did ban it, but it's not new news. It's not, they haven't double banned it or found a new way to ban extra bits of it or something. You know what I mean? Like Hong Kong is being super bullish on this stuff. They're like creating legislation to allow crypto related things, which is, everyone's taking up in every man and his dog is trying to get involved in that stuff, to the point that last week we spoke about how the regulator in Hong Kong was like, you guys need to stop it because it's too many of you, none of you, but half of you don't even have anything to do with crypto. So why are you trying to create a stable coin or whatever they were doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is just nonsense. I don't know. But it certainly came at the right time. So obviously to me, it was very targeted. One of those, big marketing machines trying to work on pushing prices up and down, and they see that the Bitcoin price has lost momentum, and so then they release something like this. Oh,
Yeah.
China's banned it, and it was almost tongue in cheek, because I remember like this stuff used to happen back in the day, like China's banned it, and they've just done it again, and people took it seriously for some reason, and then they took it seriously enough to put out tweets to refute it. I'm like, surely we just ignore it at this point. We don't even waste your breath on it. But anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, let it continue. We remember the last term for this. I haven't heard this term for a while. The old FUD. The old people used to wheel around FUD every time some news came out that people didn't want to hear. They'd call it FUD. Sometimes it was actually legit. But it was always a term that came out. And now people just go, it's disappeared from the crypto lexicon.
I mean, what they say, the classic saying is that in a bull market, if good news makes the price go up, bad news does nothing, and in a bear market, good news does nothing, and bad news makes it. So at the moment, price has momentarily dipped. I think we got down to 112K US yesterday sometime, or maybe the day before, I can't remember. But yeah, it's back up now. It's like 115K. We're sort of back in the channel again. See if we can break out to the upside. I was pretty happy with how quickly it recovered. So
yeah, market still feels pretty strong. There's certainly a lot of interest across that. Now, I think we probably could. The activity across the desk, the OTC desk, has still been pretty solid.
Yes, definitely.
In Australia, not just across the majors, and there's obviously a lot of on-ramping, off-ramping with stables. People buying Bitcoin, but even altcoin still is showing a bit of interest as well. Okay, next one. So this is the other one we wanted to focus on, and you sent around some stuff internally on this, which we can delve right into. So the corporate treasury strategy seems to be the in-topic thing at the moment. A lot of people following the copycat strategy, said for micro strategy, now strategy. Funnily enough, it was in August back in 2020 when strategy first started buying. So this is kind of the anniversary month of strategy being the first corporate pioneers into the Bitcoin treasury space. That was 2020 or 20? No, it was 2020.
I think
pretty
2020,
sure.
yeah.
So August 2020 was when the strategy first started buying, and here we are 5 years later, and they
haven't stopped yet.
They haven't stopped, and in fact, they've got a stack of copycats now. But of course, outside of in fact, for all treasury strategies, you sent around some interesting articles about how there's got some parallels here. Not saying it's the same as previous historical events, but there are some parallels.
Yeah.
You want to run through some of that?
Yeah, just briefly. So the articles I sent around were around how the parallels to the 1920s crash. So back then, there was no SEC, and there was a bunch of companies building what's called they were just like these trust structures, right? These financial trust structures, and they essentially leveraged the underlying asset, and then with the money that people put into these companies, they would do the same thing. They would use that money to issue more debt and buy more of the underlying asset in the trust. Very similar to how the Bitcoin treasury companies are doing at the moment. And I guess the lesson from that was that with all good things, all good things must come to an end. And it was all good while the underlying assets, value was going up. But as soon as that plateaued out and that sort of bull market finished, then these investment companies just crashed like never before, and it was horrible. And there was, doomsday kind of stuff. To the point where they had to, figure out how to make sure this doesn't happen again. And regulatory bodies were born out of it. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen with the Bitcoin treasury the Bitcoin treasury companies, but it does seem like if we get too fever pitched, it's you've got to be careful, because obviously we've got the SEC now that is, regulatory bodies around the world which are trying to do the right thing and protect investors. But it's like anything, you can just get too excited and things will crash. Doesn't matter how good the regulatory bodies are and how much protection they provide. Things can go wrong. I guess the article or the paragraph that we're talking about this week in the market update talks a lot about the Ethereum treasury companies as well. Which is an interesting one from my point of view. So BitMine, which is the biggest Ethereum treasury company, has something like, I can't remember what it is, like 800,000 Ethereum in it or something, some huge number. That's the biggest one that exists. If you look at the share price over the last sort of month, it's only down. So it's sort of, if we can delve into this a little bit. So when you're looking at treasury companies, you're usually measuring their performance with something called the MNAV. So the MNAV is like an index on the net asset value of the company, which is basically you get sort of what the company's worth, and with these treasury companies, they're worth what the underlying Bitcoin or Ethereum is that they hold, and you divide it by the number of shares that they have, and that's kind of what the share price should be. The MNAV is like an index that basically says, okay, if the number of MNAV is above 1, it means the shares are worth more than what they should be worth according to the NAV, and if it's below 1, then it's less than what they should be worth. Bitmine's MNAV a month ago, when it first launched all this stuff, was about 3 or something like that. It was huge. It was 3 times. The shares are worth 3 times what they should be, kind of thing, theoretically. And now it's down to 1 point something. It's been down only since then. If you look at the share price and the MNAV, and it kind of makes sense, right? Because the NAV should be compressing down to what the share price is. It doesn't make sense really for the share price to be higher than what the actual company is worth. But there's a lot of confused people out there saying, why is the share price only going down? This is like the biggest buyer of Ethereum. They're getting yield on this Ethereum. They've got this plan to buy 5%. It's only up only. And it will take, I'm still bullish on Bitmine, not financial advice, obviously, but I think it's possibly will take a while before we see the gains come through. But this whole corporate treasury, like crypto treasury companies is fascinating to me. It seems like the next thing, the next meter in crypto, and each season, each cycle, we need a reason for the bull run and then the inevitable crash. And my prediction is that this is going to be it.
Oh, this is it?
Well, not this is it now, but I'm just saying these are the reasons. Like these treasury companies are going to get to some fever pitch, and then things are going to they're going to get too leveraged, and there's going to be too many excited people trying to buy it.
So that particular article you sent through, what the piece that I hadn't realised, or I just didn't know the history of it, was that actually this had been penned a while ago. So Pierre Rochard, if I've pronounced that correctly, he's been around for a while. You can follow him on X and all that kind of stuff. And he was kind of likening this to effectively this, well, again, I guess it is a little bit of this time it's different. But I guess his thesis, at least as far as that article is concerned, is that the whole buying Bitcoin is really a speculative attack on the idea of diminishing value in fiat currencies.
Yes.
And that there is a stronger argument to say, well, okay, buying stock is one thing, but buying a hard currency like Bitcoin is a different thing, because every time you buy Bitcoin and more people who join you in buying Bitcoin, the stronger the Bitcoin gets, but also in contrast, the weaker the existing system gets, because people exiting one system to move into the other. Yeah. And so in that regard, it's more of an exiting where the pressure builds and the value builds as we tend towards, dare I call it, the hyper-Bitcoinization. So the more we move to that, to the point at which, nobody's going to want to swap their Bitcoin for fiat at any point, it's really a race as to, it's really the means is what brings about the end, so to speak. The more people who participate in the idea of having Bitcoin as your treasury or just buying Bitcoin means that, unlike, I guess, in 1920s, when people were just buying fiat into stocks, you're actually leaving fiat behind for a completely new asset. Something along those lines. If I've not misrepresented that idea.
No, you have. So
I have misrepresented it, or that's the
no. You're correct. There's a few sort of articles in this chain. The first one does talk about the speculative attack on USD, basically, and the idea here is the concept of a speculative attack isn't new. So this has been done for a long time, usually in the foreign currency markets, where one investor will see that one currency is being, say, pegged to the USD, and then they'll be like, okay, I can take advantage of this, because if I keep selling this currency, then they won't be able to hold this peg for, to keep it at 1-to-1, and eventually it'll crash, and then I'll buy it back and blah, blah, blah. So there's a speculative attack on currencies, which is sort of really what it's doing is forcing the currency that's pegged to another currency to unpeg and float. And the idea here is that, Pierre Rochard is talking about how it works with Bitcoin and its speculative attack on the USD, which is kind of the reverse. Usually, you're attacking with a fiat currency, but here we're attacking with with the Bitcoin.
Mm.
Does it work? Is it different to the other way? I don't know. Like, I feel like people like who demand that we're in a super cycle forget, and I'm not you, but they seem to forget that we, every year the super cycle idea comes out, and it's the fact is people still have coins to sell. Like, the coins exist and they're there to sell, and people will sell them when it gets to the right price. Companies buying these coins under the Treasury idea. I don't like Saylor is famously talked about never selling his coins, which kind of makes no sense because why buy it then if you're never going to actually use it? But maybe he borrows against it or whatever.
Well, I guess his idea is to use that as a. There's other ways to monetize that by like buying again, using that as collateral to borrow. Buy assets.
There are ways you can do it, and I guess that makes sense if you sort of borrow in fiat, and then you kind of the inflation of or the appreciation of Bitcoin, pays off the debt. But I think there's going to be a lot of these treasury companies that don't have the same kind of mindset and that aren't as maxi as Saylor is and aren't as confident about what's going to happen, and they'll sell, and that's how the crashing that's how it happens, right? Yep. Like if enough of these guys get spooked, and some of them, it won't necessarily be spooked, they'll just be forced sellers. Like they'll, what do you do when everyone's sold your shares and you're the ones holding all the shares?
Yep.
You got to funds, you got to do something anyway. So I agree at a high level. Like it does make sense potentially that if all these treasury companies gobble up the Bitcoin and never sell it, then that's like they're swapping their fiat for Bitcoin, and fiat just becomes more and more worthless compared to Bitcoin. I'd like to see it first though. I think the reality is that companies do sell. Yeah. But when does this happen? Is it this cycle? Is it in the next sort of 6 months when we expect this 4-year cycle to top, or is it maybe at the end of next cycle?
Or beyond, yeah.
Could be a few years away still.
Yeah, it's a very light on version, but for our honeymoon, I remember we went to the Maldives, and everywhere in the Maldives accepts US dollars. I guess they don't have the biggest banking they don't have their own huge banking system, and so it's all run on mainly US dollars. But they do have their local currency with Maldivian something or other. And when I got there, everyone's kind of like, well, just use USD, it's fine. Or you can, but they have to also accept local currency. But even the locals didn't want to really accept it. And so what you could do is you could definitely use US dollars to get Maldivian, whatever they were called, wizards, I don't know. But you couldn't then go the other way. So this is what I found out, is there's a certain exchange rate to get into it, but you end up just using US dollars throughout your time or whatever. Right. And then at the end of it, you're stuck with all this like local currency, and you're like, you want to go back and go like, hey, can I trade this back for US dollars or something? They're like, nope. Like you're out. Like, and it's kind of a similar thing, I guess, in it's kind of a microcosm of what the idea of hyper Bitcoinization is. You can go one way, but once you're through, it's like, well, once you go through, everyone's like, I don't want it back. The other one.
Yeah, back. I mean, a long enough time horizon, I think that's probably true. But yeah, does it happen in the next few years? I doubt it.
No, I can't see it. I can't see that either.
Not with like, I don't know if we'll talk about it, but like Tether is just going gangbusters right now. USDT, everyone's loving it. So USDT still has a little bit of USD still has a little bit of road left in front of it.
I think so. I think we're a long time away from that, but that means that we've got lot longer in this adventure left to see how it all pans out.
Not too long, hopefully.
Not too long. Give me everyone should be give more time to collect more Bitcoin, I guess. All right, so we said we're going to focus on a few of the high level stuff here. The other one I know we wanted to touch on was the UK opening up to ETNs, up to retail. So this is all about the UK has lifted its 2021 ban on retail investors buying cryptocurrency exchange traded notes. So I guess that's, tell us what that is and why we should care.
So the UK definitely seems quite far behind here because ETNs aren't even equivalent to ETFs. So they've opened up. It's kind of like when the US allowed ETFs, but only for futures Bitcoins. Stuff, you couldn't buy. There was no spot Bitcoin ETFs. So an ETN is basically like it's debt. Basically, you get issued debt from the company. They don't even have to buy the underlying asset that you're buying in an ETN. So for a Bitcoin ETN, they could buy it. They could take a position in Bitcoin. They might just take a derivative position. They could buy futures. They could whatever. But the main problem is with an ETN, there's no sort of segregation of funds with the underlying, such that if the fund that you're buying this ETN through goes under, you can be done. Like that could be it for you. You lose all your money. Whereas with an ETF, they have to, like, part of the regulation is they have to, use an AP to buy funds and have it stored in certain custody, and there's like regulations around how that all works. And so if the ETF fund goes down, the underlying is still there and it's in the, with the custodian, and you can get it back, kind of thing. So yeah, ETNs, I mean, it's better than nothing, I suppose. The real news here is ETNs have existed for a while, but only for professional investors. Now the UK's opened it up for the retail to get involved. Yeah, it's not ideal. It's like if you're like really pro electric cars, and then your favorite car company releases a hybrid, it's like, I guess it's better than nothing, but really, like, you're still using petrol. It's the same kind of thing. Like, you can get exposure to Bitcoin through this ETN, and if that's the only way you can do it, like, you're not allowed to buy physical Bitcoin in whatever structure you have, then it's better than nothing, I guess. But you're taking extra risk, and it's not a real, like, if you want, it's not going to suck up Bitcoin supply. Let's put it that way.
That's right.
Because these ETN funds will figure out ways to, manage their risk, and maybe they only buy half of the Bitcoin because they think it's going to go down, and they're allowed to trade on this thing, right? They just have to be able to provide you with the money when you decide to sell your ETN share. So it's interesting. Not as good as, again, they seem like 2 steps behind the US. Interestingly for the US though, they've just recently allowed the Bitcoin ETFs to be created and redeemed in kind. So that's something that a lot of people have been fighting for a while. What that means is currently, or previously, when you bought a share in a Bitcoin ETF, you had to pay in US dollars. And when you sold your ETF share, you would receive US dollars. Whereas now you can actually, if you own physical Bitcoin and you say, you know what, I don't want to hold the physical Bitcoin anymore, it's too hard, I want to buy, the equivalent in the share, you can now actually give that Bitcoin to the ETF fund, and they will give you your shares, the equivalent number of shares, which means you don't have to sell your Bitcoin and then with the sold US dollars buy your, you know what I mean? Like there's less steps involved. I'm guessing there's tax implications. I haven't looked into that actually. But it's the same on the redemption. So when you sell your shares, you can now actually just go, you know what, I'm finished with the ETF. Give me the Bitcoin that I owned as part of my shares, and they can give you the Bitcoin directly rather than giving you US dollars and then you have to buy the share, buy the Bitcoin with the US dollars. And that's pretty cool. I don't think it's going to actually change, it's not going to make, not going to double supply, requirements or anything like that. I don't think anyone's going to be running around trying to buy it because of this change, but it's just sort of, making it easier to get in and out of it. It's a bit of a maxi move, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, out of interest, do you remember what month was it the ETFs actually came out? Do you remember?
It's like January
last year or something.
No, it's like 2021, wasn't it?
2021?
It was ages ago. Yeah, it was like a couple of years ago.
Was it 2021?
No, maybe not 2021.
No,
but it was like
I thought it was 2023 or 2024.
2023, yeah, I believe.
Yeah.
Or 2024. Yeah.
Man,
I remember it was after Christmas.
Yeah.
One of those years.
I should know that. It feels like forever. Funny enough, I was looking at it because I was looking around at some interesting stuff that maybe happened in August. And this time last year, do you know what the price was this time last year? It's dip below 50,000. And there was the dip below 50,000. We've kind of almost more than doubled since August last year. I'm only raising that to point out that like 12 months, I know in crypto feels like 3 years anyway. Yeah, but just 12 months ago.
Yeah.
We've come a long way.
I guess, so what was that? That was like a couple of months after the halving. Everyone's getting a bit excited, but price usually doesn't move for sort of at least 6 months. So it would have been good times.
Everyone kicks it. Yeah, all right. So actually one thing that we would like to do, so maybe not today, but next week, we wanted to gauge, audience's interest in particular. Some interest is Nick's been around particularly in crypto for a long time and seen some interesting stuff behind the scenes. And we wanted to actually delve into, a few, some like significant events in the history of crypto and the development that we've seen that never made the headlines.
Well, a lot of them probably made the headlines, but it's like forgotten history now.
Forgotten history, yeah. Now, and it's funny, right? The general level of, understanding about how platforms work, how crypto works is still pretty rudimentary. There was I won't mention the name, there was a failed exchange that affected a lot of investors. And I remember jumping into a Discord group, which was disaffected users of that particular exchange. And just knowing how exchanges work, I was just a fly on the wall. I didn't say anything, but I just kind of was watching to see what the kind of news flow came through on this particular channel. And I was, what's the word? I mean, it's a pretty ordinary situation, but what struck me was that there was, I don't know, a good 100 odd people in this group. And they were all speculating as to why things had unfolded the way that they had unfolded. And there was thousands of comments in there, and I read through all of them, and I did not see one that actually had a proper understanding of how things actually worked. And there was one guy in there, I have no idea because it was a fake name, and he came online and he would just say things confidently. Yeah. And I think he believed what he was saying. I don't think he was there to kind of like throw in any red herrings or whatever you want to call it, throw people off the scent. There's no incentive for that to do that. He just didn't know what he was doing, but he said it confidently enough that other people were like, I don't know, were just like, okay, this guy said it confidently enough.
He liked the clout.
It was Obama.
You know what I mean? And there's so much of this.
Should we get him on the pod?
Yeah.
Get him dial him up.
What's his name? Big Bobby 69 or something. Anyway, Big Bobby, if you're listening, maybe do your research. But that's the kind of stuff that we would love to delve into, because I guess being able to have what's the word? Knowing what things look like from behind the scenes is something would be really interesting, I think, to share. With
I
people
think so.
in general.
And how do we want people to contact us about this stuff?
Message Jared directly. He never sleeps.
Yeah.
His number is 04 555 555
classic number.
Just message him, put in your comments, put in your thoughts, and Nick and I will do some research.
Comment on whichever sort of stream you're watching on. Please feel free to comment.
Any of the clips or anything?
Yeah, any of the clips, the shorts, whatever. And yeah, like I'm keen to sort of talk about a lot of like the historic Bitcoin stuff. I think can be pretty interesting. It was the Wild West back then. You know, we've got legislation and everyone's wearing suits now, but back then people were wearing their caps backwards and carrying skateboards. And I think there's some interesting times. So yeah, feel free to, like, if you've got any questions or anything you've heard that you want to delve into, happy to share. Share the times.
Yeah, and I guess some really interesting stuff would be, for example, around the FTX is a great example. When FTX went down, and to be honest, I mean, when FTX first came to Australia, and it was a big brand, they looked like they were kind of smashing it all over the park. And at first, you didn't quite get the sense, and like I remember there was a conversation, and in fact, Adrian was in on this conversation where like they were sort of promoting custody and all this kind of stuff. And I remember in a meeting, they were saying like, well, why don't you keep all your assets on us, and you know you could do yada yada yada.
That's right.
And Adrian said something along the lines of, well, what if you go down? And everyone in the room, and this was not just like everyday sort of observers, it was a lot of people who worked professionally in the crypto ecosystem. They were like, just didn't even acknowledge it as a valid question, because it was just kind of assumed that it could not be the case that there was any question.
Too big to fail.
Too big to fail.
Yeah.
Of course, we know how that story ended up. And so there's a bunch of stuff like that I'd love to sort of delve into. Celsius was another great example. And if you didn't know the right questions to ask, or didn't have enough experience of how the plumbing actually is all connected to ask those questions, you know, I think Mashinsky was quoted as sort of saying, you know, we're too big to fail now because they had, you know, $40 billion or something, some crazy number. But of course, we know how that panned out. So I'd love to delve into some of these cataclysmic things. It doesn't have to be all cataclysmic things. The SegWit stuff that you were talking about would be really fascinating, and a lot of stuff like that, the good stuff as well as the bad stuff.
Yeah. So if you have any questions or any ideas, please let us know. Happy to talk about it. Otherwise, we'll pick a topic and sort of get into the nuts and bolts and find some interesting stuff.
And share some on the ground stuff. You know, it's the industry, broadly speaking, has grown. It's grown heaps, but it's still incredibly accessible to people when you do it full time. It'd be there's a few people who might be a bit hard to get in touch with, but generally speaking, it's still of the size and still of a certain culture where you can kind of get, if you don't know of someone, you know of most of the people, at least by, what's the word I'm looking for? Know them, not by reputation, but first degree, there's only one degree of separation.
I think like Twitter has just been a game changer in this space, right? Or X, as you say. You know, like rewind 20 years, that was not a thing. You couldn't just send someone a message. Like you could send the CEO of any company a message basically these days. And not to say they're always going to read it, but you've got a better chance than you did previously. And you can send companies a message, and you can just this globalization has just been brought one step closer with social media, and I just find that fascinating because now you can really get in touch with these people. And if your question's good enough, then they might answer.
If your question's good enough.
Yeah. Or I mean, obviously they can't answer every single question, and I'm sure they get bombarded, but you see all these examples of, like Elon Musk, for example, he'll often tweet quote someone who's asked him a question and answer it, and I'm guessing there's always an agenda there. Like he's going to quote the ones that he likes and probably ignore the ones that are trolling. But I think he sets a good example, and I think a lot of other CEOs try and do the same thing.
Engagement. Nice. Okay, well, a couple other things I'm interested to see, again, just sort of from your perspective, Nick, maybe a few comments about the market and what you're seeing on the desk.
Look, it's same. We've discussed this before as well. OTC desk is humming at the moment. I'm super busy when I'm covering it, but the exchanges sort of across the board, volumes are all down. So it's a funny kind of situation. Is this because corporates are now using ETFs instead of exchanges? Don't know. As I said before, like last week, usually these, at least for these Bitcoin treasury companies, the point is when they have Bitcoin on their, on their balance sheet, they own the physical Bitcoin. So they generally not actually buying the ETFs, which is great because it means there's, if the ETFs are doing really well, it's not necessarily because of these treasury companies, it's just extra flow. But yeah, the market's, we looked at our stats recently, actually. So if you look at the Bitcoin traded volume and you go back to like 2015, so this is, Bitcoin's worth like less than $1,000, less than $500 probably back then. And you look at the volume that we've done in Bitcoin terms, it's kind of changed over the years by about 20% up and down.
Really?
Yeah. And however, we've got, we've 100x our user base or 1,000x our user base. The Bitcoin price is going up and up. There's all these, advancements in the industry. We've gone through all these cycles, yet the Bitcoin volume is mostly unchanged. And it's just because, as Bitcoin gets more and more expensive, you trade less and less actual Bitcoin, notional Bitcoin, but the volume, in fiat terms is going up only. It's like constantly going up and up and up. But it's just kind of interesting how, the volume is going up at a similar rate. Sorry, the volume is, the trading numbers are going up at a similar rate to what the price of Bitcoin is, such that our actual notional Bitcoin traded is fairly static.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Fantastic.
Yeah, did that answer your question?
It did. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I was just going to get some
anyway,
comments.
market stuff. What else have we got here? Rates cuts. So there's a few things. I mean, if we want to talk about what happened recently, in the market, we were sort of hanging around 120K. We're now at like 115, up from about 112. So it was a decent dip, like 8 or 9%. And yeah, I guess at a high level, Trump is posting nuclear subs near Russia. That's never great news. Trump is sort of starting to do more tariff stuff, which is more of the same, but it seems like he's serious this time or something is what I'm hearing.
This time.
Yeah,
Serious?
exactly. So the last rates decision came through recently and they held. They didn't cut rates, which is very disappointing to a lot of people who were expecting it. And then, of course, the China FUD that came through. There's just like a few...
That's not even real news.
Yeah, it's not. But it all adds up. And I think that's why it's sort of recovering quite easily is because, the China thing is just obviously nonsense. People are still... So Goldman Sachs, for example, is saying that, there's going to be 3 rate cuts by the end of the year still. They still believe it's going to happen. If you look at Polymarket, the odds are that two rate cuts are coming in, but 2 or 3, I think it's still, what people want to hear. The rate, the chances of 2 are higher than 1, that's for sure. But 3 seems unlikely. Anyway, we'll find out.
Yeah.
But so as soon as they start cutting rates, if this Russia thing simmers down and tariffs, we start seeing tariffs in the rear view mirror, I think, we'll catch a bid because there's just so much other bullish stuff happening, like this project crypto, which is crazy.
The project crypto, it's really hard to, be understated about just how different this was right? And again, it's not catching headlines, but again, I know at the start I mentioned a year ago we're going to say, look, Gary Gensler wasn't fired day one, but you know,
No, wasn't he? He quit day one.
He quit day one. Or something.
Yeah. I mean, close enough.
Close enough. He left.
I'll
promptly.
let Trump have that one.
Yeah, he knew it was coming, but it's just absolutely incredible that in 12 months, I'm sure we would have said, hey, things might be better under Trump. But we were never going to get the, Paul Atkins coming out and saying, no, this is the future. This is the game changer.
Everything's going on change.
Everything's going on change.
Yeah.
We're backing this to the hilt. And for that just to be like, meh, yeah, what's more important right now is nuclear subs in Russia.
Yeah, which is true.
It's true, but it's just incredible. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. It does make me think, what's going to happen in the next 12 months? We could see anything.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we've covered off all the big stuff this week. There are some other little details. There's small developments, I guess, in Korea. There's maybe more developments in Hong Kong, but it's stuff that we've already touched on quite recently. All right. So we've asked a poll. Yeah, we asked you a poll question. You have answered. We asked a poll. Just said that. Is Trump the main character of crypto? And so far, yes is winning.
Yep, 60 to
60%.
40%.
60 to 40%.
Yep. I mean, I think he's definitely still the main character. And at the moment, like these Project Crypto stuff isn't coming from Trump, but it's clearly like he's, set out this pro-crypto agenda months and months and months ago. Said things like, I want to see this legislation on my desk by August. And we got it like a week early, which was very surprising to me. I was expecting it to come, but late. We've had the Clarity Bill come out. We've had the Stable Act come out. We've got this anti-CBDC bill that has been, passed, and now we've got Project Crypto. Like it's all related to him. But then as well, like we said earlier, he giveth and he taketh away. Like he's also shouting about tariffs, putting nuclear subs near Russia, and backing Sydney Sweeney for some reason.
Backing Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah.
Good genes. Yeah. I wouldn't have thought, you see the zeitgeist sort of ebb and flow, and under Trump we had the whole wokeness and all this kind of stuff. And it's just that now, like companies, like for example, that American Eagle thing. I know we're going way off topic here, but like, 12 months ago, if someone had the American Eagle had have come out with the whole and just told, everyone, no, we're not Nazis. You can all go jump off a cliff. There would have been outrage, and now people are emboldened to be like, no, sorry.
Yeah,
you can.
The president backs me,
and the president backs me.
Yeah,
you can all go jump.
Yeah,
crazy times we live in.
Yeah, and this is scary. Like are we seeing the erosion of Western values and democracy? I don't know. Again, way off topic, but far out. Stuff is pretty scary.
Well, lucky we're here to capture the news 1 week at a time.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you know what? At least Trump is now sort of seems to be taking the Ukraine war stuff a bit more seriously. It seemed like he didn't care for a while, and then Melania got involved. It was like, hey, they just bombed a hospital or something. He's like, oh crap.
Better go do something.
Called up the nuclear subs. Yeah.
Called up the nuclear subs. Crazy times. Well, we'll see what happens next week. Have we got anything else we need to cover off? I think we've covered off everything.
Yeah, basically. I mean, there's some bits and pieces, but I don't think we need to talk about them.
Okay.
Unless, I'll just give a headline, and if anyone wants to talk about it, we can talk about it next week. But Base has overtaken Solana in terms of token creations.
Oh, right, really?
Yeah, that was interesting. What else? USA Today posted an article about how you should buy XRP. I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that
No. Before we go, we definitely have to wrap. We have to talk about that.
Yeah. So USA Today, big publication out of the US, posted an article about how instead of buying $500 worth of your S&P index, which is a very safe bet, goes up by just under inflation every year probably. You should instead be buying $500 worth of XRP. I'm not here to shit on XRP, but please do not believe what this article says. The guy in it talks as if he's writing about XRP back in 2017 and how it's going to be this big thing that allows cross-border transactions to work really smoothly and fastly. The fact is XRP isn't being really used for that stuff anymore. we're an ODL partner with Ripple, so we're very close to them. Love the guys. The product works well, but they're using RLUSD, which is their stablecoin project. They've has been launched for a little while now. RLUSD, and it makes much more sense. RLUSD is a stablecoin. That's how you want to you don't want to buy XRP, send it to another exchange in another country to do your cross-border remittance and have it lose 20% of value in the time that it's being transferred. It makes much more sense to use something like RLUSD. So buying XRP is like the reasons they lay out in this article about why you should buy XRP, in my mind, are completely false. A bunch of nonsense, to be honest. But the fact is, so many people are going to be reading that article. And I feel like this is an article written by a 2017 XRP army kind of guy. He's drank the Kool-Aid and here we are in 2025 with these 2017 reasons. No, it wasn't Joe Shu. No, it was some guy out of the US, I guess, writing pro XRP, and somehow he got a mouthpiece in USA Today. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. Like it was part of the news, but as soon as you read a bit deeper into it, you're like, hang on, there's no real.
Same dude that wrote Trump's press release. I'm
guessing.
guessing.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, that's
He's
right.
really getting a lot of airtime lately.
Yeah. For those who don't remember, when they were announcing like the strategic reserve, it was it's like mainly about Bitcoin. Everyone's talking about Bitcoin, but then the press release came out talking about XRP, Solana, Cardano, Litecoin maybe. I can't remember. There was a bunch of other, and everyone was like, "What?" Like Bitcoin and Ethereum weren't even mentioned in this press release, and everyone was like, what's happening here?" And then, it turned out that there was some mouthpiece from Ripple had managed to get the pen and was writing this thing that Trump released. And that was funny at the time. I imagine whatever lobbyist sort of
top shelf hijinks.
Whatever lobbying company managed to get that probably is never going to be lobbying again. At least not under the current incarnation. But.
Jared was in his ear talking about Cardano, no doubt.
Yeah, probably.
Still got your bag, Jared?
Less.
Oh, whatever pumps your bags, eh?
It's the same amount of Cardano. It's just worthless.
Yeah. Hey, you've bought some other stuff too. You've been riding some other altcoins, haven't you, Jared? What do you got for us?
Just the top 5. So we've got some ETH, we've got XRP, Sol, and ADA.
Yeah, it's respectable. You didn't buy any useless after last week?
That's
No.
down 24% since last week.
Well,
What about Fartcoin?
Bitcoin.
Well. Good news. A little bit of fun there. All right, so I guess, man, it's again, just crazy. So we'll definitely be keeping this story going, talking about the Project Crypto and how it actually folds out. It took us a while. In fact, less time to go through on this Genius and Clarity and all this kind of stuff. But it's still, it happens, seems to be at the time a bit slow, and then bang, it's done. And Project Crypto is probably going to be pretty similar, I guess. We'll be following it for a few months and all of a sudden be in place, and
hopefully.
away we go.
I mean, I think there is still a long road ahead. Like legislation needs to be written, etc. But it's we're heading in the right direction. It's not they're not sitting there going, we need to crush this industry anymore.
No.
Which is what we dealt with for the last 4 years, 5 years. But
okay. Well, stay tuned. We'll keep the news coming. The next week we might even have some historical highlights. Who knows where we'll go? But thanks for stopping by, Nick. Thanks for giving us all the latest news, Jared. And of course, everyone for hanging around. We'll see you next week.
See you later.